So that in a sense, it was a form of receiving and of writing which was independent of the control of the mind, of the ordinary mind, and at the same time very mental in a sense.
Very mental.
Very
yes.
mental. So the mind was not excluded, but it worked on a completely different principle. It worked in a receiving, which is after all what SUBUD is. It was always in a state of latihan, and this writing came as the things that happen in a latihan. You move, do whatever comes to you, and in this it's writing, and it works through the mental apparatus, but not the ordinary mind. And I told you already that Bapak has said that this should be published, and under my own name, and that there was more to come, because at that time I'd only written the first part. It seemed to me the end. It came to an end. I tested, is this finished? This was. And it was either chapter 15 or chapter 18. I don't remember which now. And then he said, and there is more. Well, then more writing came while we were in Ireland, and then when we went to South Africa, and when we came back to Switzerland. At different times, a new chapter would come. And then I found a publisher who I was glad to find through Watkins, who was very attracted by what I'd written, Songs of Submission, and he wanted very much to have it published. And when he read it, he then went back over all the literature he could find on submission, to find the background in religious terminology and Christianity, wherever he found it, because he was very touched by it. And he found one publisher who said they couldn't, and then he found another one, which was Clark. And there was an individual man who owned it and ran it, whom I met in London, who again was very touched by the reading of it, and he felt this must be published. He was a very interesting man. He'd published a book of Hasidic Jewish things because he felt this must be published. It was not probably profitable at all, but it had escaped out of Poland. It was original, very interesting documents of the Hasidic Jews, and the whole process and the teaching, and he published that. Anyhow, he published mine. And then I went back to Switzerland, and then 9 more chapters came, completely unexpectedly. So it started.
And how it started? How in which way, practically?
Well, a sort of disturbance would come in me, and I would find an opportunity and go to a table and take pen or pencil and start writing. And then suddenly I found a chapter came. It was isolated, it was different from the end, it wasn't a continuation at all. It ends, I thought, completely, and I've left that as the ending. It ends with, well, what I felt was the right ending, complete. But these 9 chapters, so I found myself faced with 9 chapters, what do I do? And it was part of the book, and it couldn't be added at the end. And so I went through it, the rest of the book, again, with a gentle latihan in me to find out where this went. I found the place, which, God willing, is right.
And then, for the other books?
Well, for the other books, nothing happened for quite a long time, and in my own thinking or attitude, I didn't think anything more would ever come. I felt that was what Bapak had said I would receive. He'd spoken of a commentary on Susila Bodhidharma, and that struck me as strange, and I couldn't understand it. I knew his book, Susila Bodhidharma, and I looked at it, and I knew it well, of course, but I couldn't see anything to do with a commentary on that. I looked at the chapters in many of Eastern books particularly. There are books of commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, on any major works. There are commentaries, sometimes become almost more famous than the original, but I simply couldn't see myself doing a commentary like that. Nothing came to me. So I thought this is the end. That is an exposition, as it were, in Songs of Submission of SUBUD and the receiving, and that's that. And then, to my surprise, I don't remember what year, but again I've got it on the sheets of paper. Several years later.
In 80, I think.
Hmm?
In 80, I think.
No, it was earlier than that. Earlier than that. A chapter suddenly came, and two came, and then there was nothing more for several years when we were in Formentera, except that poems came. And to me there was a distinction. This was later published as Songs of the Heart.
Yes.
And the first half is in prose and was all receiving. And the first two chapters are at the beginning of that book. But there were several years' separation between the first two and the others. And yet it seemed to be they should go together. And the poems, what I found with them was that they came, as it were, in Latihan, and at the same time, it wasn't like in the prose writing where nothing was ever altered, because I felt with those sometimes alterations had to take place for the sake of the medium, for the sake of the poetry, the scanning or the something. So that to me they weren't as pure receiving as the first half. And at the same time, it seemed to me when it came to publication that they went together. And that was some years, again I don't remember how many, but it's all written down. And then I thought that was the end, certainly. And then, much later, I suddenly started receiving again, really in a book which is now, it's called Songs of the Journey. It hasn't come out in English yet, it's out in German. And this, I got halfway through that before the explanation really came to me as I perceived it, which was that this really was Susila Bodhidharma, and Susila the first book,
Yes.
and Songs of the Heart was Buddhi, and then Dharma was Songs of the Journey, which is the passage through life, and the receiving of the Latihan and internal guidance and everything through life, through all the difficulties. And Songs of the Journey goes really from childhood almost right on until death. It's the whole process through of the applying of SUBUD and the internal content to all aspects of one's life, including marriage, including earning money, including washing up dishes. It covers everything.